This was the reason her father never had any money. What happened to the old man who used to live here? He is gone. He went to find his fortune. What? Do not tell me a falsehood. The man pounded angrily on the door of the tumble-down house, but Maomao only gave him a cold stare. She even found herself grunting far somewhat in spite of herself. You're supposed to be running an apothecary shop. Don't you even have any medicine? Yeah, I'm running an apothecary shop, all right. It's a business. That means money talks. Maomao would hardly be averse to seeing the man if he had cash, but he didn't seem to be here in that kind of good faith. You take money from the poor and needy. If you can't pay, then stay away. It is because people like you come rooting around that I have to live in this shack. Maomao gave the door a good rap to scare the man away. Chuyu hid behind her, holding a soup pot and a ladle. If anything happened, he would smack them together to make as much noise as possible. He could be impudent, but he had a decent head on his shoulders. The noise would be loud enough to bring someone from the verdigris house. However, the visitor had gone silent. Maomao disliked this type of person. People would readily take advantage of you if they thought you would give them donations. The man's dirty face became a scowl when he saw Maomao wasn't going to yield. He leaned against the door, looking weak. If you want money, I will pay you. It won't be right away, but I swear I will. So please come look. My child, the old man began to cry. It was a familiar routine. Still, the man sat there with his head down and he did not move. Now we cannot get out the door, Maomao thought. Hey, Freckles Chuyu, still holding the cooking utensils, was glancing at her. This is ridiculous, Maomao thought. Despite her frustration, she grabbed a brush off the table and plunged it into some ink. She opened a beat-up old cupboard. Inside, she found a sheaf of paper and some wood strips. She took out one of the strips and jotted something on it. Then she flung it at the man. Can you at least write your name? After a moment, the man said no. I can't, thought Not. Next, she tossed a knife to him. Use that to make your mark, just your thumbs plenty. The man squinted at the wood strip, but he couldn't possibly read what was on it. What does it say? He asked. That you'll pay for the treatment. It is an IOU. Reluctantly, the man pressed the knife into the pad of his thumb, then made a mark in blood on the strip. Seems like a lot of trouble, Chuyu muttered from behind her, but she nudged him with her toe to quiet him. Is this all right? The man asked, looking at his thumb and handing the wood strip back to Maomao. I guess it will have to be. Maomao smiled a bit villainously, but she smiled all the same and undid the door bar. The man eventually led her to an alleyway not far from the pleasure district. Men with haggard bodies and dirty clothes watched them. The man who had brought her gave the others a threatening look. Maybe they should have brought another bodyguard or two. Maomao wasn't foolish enough to run off after the man. She had asked Ukko to accompany her. He could be a little excitable, but as the head of the menservants, he knew his way around rough company. What did we come all the way out here for? Ukko asked. I don't like it any more than you do, but what else was I supposed to do? Well, so you take after your old man after all, he said, mussing her hair fondly. She pushed his hand away. This is it, the man said, leading them into a shack. A piece of cloth served as the door. A rancid smell filled the air, along with the odors of sweat and grime. There was also the smell of old trash and even human waste. A child about the same age as Chuyu lay on something dirty. It could have been a reed mat or perhaps rushes. Maomao could not be sure. Next to her, a slightly older child stared at the man with blank eyes. She was a girl several years younger than Maomao. However, she did not have the vitality her youth deserved. Daddy. She must have cried all her tears long ago because her cheeks were dry as she looked at the man. Here she is. Please examine her. Maomao looked at the girl lying on the mat without saying a word. The color of her arms and legs was dull. Her body spasmed from time to time. The smell of waste was likely from what was coming out of her. Her hair was very messy, making it difficult to tell if she was a boy or a girl. She was also terribly filthy. How long has she been like this? Since a few days ago, someone said, but even before that her hands seemed to be bothering her. The older girl answered. Maomao wrapped a cloth around each of her own hands and also around her mouth. Then she approached the child. Hey, what do you think you are doing? The father demanded angrily. What do you mean, what? Maomao asked. She is sick, isn't she? I won't do anyone any good if I catch what she has. But if it bothers you that much, I don't have to look at her. Maomao glared at the man and he lowered the hand he had raised. This prompted Ukyo, who had come up behind him, to cross his arms as well. He was likely ready to dislocate the man's arm if he had become violent. Overprotective, Maomao thought. She touched the child's hand. Circulation was slow. The blood wasn't reaching the fingertips and they were turning necrotic, almost as if from frostbite. The place was drafty but not cold enough for that. The child almost looked paralyzed. Her eyes were open and she made strange sounds occasionally, as if she were in a waking dream. She is worse than this morning. What do we do, Daddy? She'll end up like Mommy. The father looked at his daughter, who looked about to cry and seemed at a loss. He scratched his head and crouched down. Please, you've got to help her. I don't want to lose another family member. The older girl also fell to her knees and both of them pressed their foreheads into the dirt floor. Well, this is a tough one. Her mother died the same way, Maomao asked. No, she succumbed to a miscarriage. A miscarriage? Maomao looked at the spittle dribbling down the immobile child's cheek. There was a thick layer around her mouth. Have you been able to get her to eat anything? We gave her some congee, just a little. At that, Maomao looked over at the filthy stove. She saw an ash-covered clay pot containing gruel. The gruel had the consistency of glue. It was hard to see much rice in it. It seemed to contain whatever they had been able to find. What exactly is in that? She asked. Aside from the small amount of rice, she saw what looked like potatoes and several herbs. Did it contain other grains? The older girl stumbled out of the house and returned with a handful of herbs. They were not poisonous, but not very nutritious either. These were the sort of grasses people ate to stave off starvation during times of famine. I know this isn't it. What else? Maomao asked. The girl averted her eyes. Nothing, she pressed. Finally the girl gave in and opened a cupboard. From it she produced some small cakes, several of them, each carefully wrapped. They weren't of a quality that would have passed muster among the consorts of the rear palace. Still, they had a distinctly sweet smell. If they seemed a little damp, it was likely due to conservation efforts. They were being eaten bit by precious bit. What are those? The father asked. His eyes widened in surprise. Apparently this was the first time he was learning about them. Someone had given them to us. We decided to give them to the children a little at a time when there wasn't anything else to eat. We showed them to Mommy, and she said not to tell you about them, Daddy. Shocked by the deception, the man's face twisted into a grimace. How dare you hide those from me? I run this house. The older girl's lifeless eyes suddenly took on a spark. But you don't ever work, Daddy. You only gamble. You make us beg by the roadside and then you take what we earn. Her words were harsh, but judging by the way the man's head drooped, it was evidently true. Here Maomao had been thinking his daughter was his priority. Perhaps he was simply afraid to lose a source of income. Did you give your sister any of this? Maomao asked. The girl nodded. Maomao tore off a bit of the cake, sniffed it, and licked a few crumbs from her fingers. Her eyes narrowed. She said someone gave this to you. It was sweet, sweet enough to tell it contained sugar. It was a very rich donation to give to a waif on the street. Who gave it to you? Maomao asked. When did they give it to you? I don't know. My little sister was the one who got it and she can't talk. It was before Mommy died, so I guess maybe a month ago. A cake with proper sugar was a real luxury for a commoner. Surely anyone who found themselves in possession of such a thing would simply eat it before it was taken from them. Do you know anyone else who got anything like this? Maomao asked, but the girl shook her head. All right, was anyone showing symptoms like this girl, about a month ago? Now that you mention it, Ukko said. He always was a sharp one. When Maomao saw him leave, she turned back to the child. She removed the cloth from around her hands and mouth and picked the girl up. Hey, what do you think you're doing? I'm taking her back with me. She will never get better in a cesspit like this. And take my advice, get rid of those treats. More than anything, it did not look like the girl had any hope of getting a decent meal in this place. And there was something else that bugged Maomao too. Let me take her, Ukko said, coming back. Thank you. Maomao handed the child to him, and together they left the shack behind. The old man next door, his fingers were rotted off, Ukko said as he trotted along carrying the girl. He said he had spoken to the old man while the elder was begging by the roadside. His recollections were hazy at first. However, a few small coins in his palm soon jogged his memory. He said a woman was giving them out. He claims he did not see her face. Maomao said. This story was starting to sound fishy. Ukko saw Maomao back to her home, then headed straight for the verdigris house. She tried to give him a few coins, but he said, "I am used to protecting kids," and refused. He had always been this way. Maomao brought the grimy child into her shack. Chu-yu, who had been left to watch the house, gave a pointed sniff. He said, "What's with her? She is filthy." Maomao replied, "A good reason for you to go heat some water. And here, take this and go ask Grams for some white rice." She gave him a handful of coins, and he dutifully went over to the verdigris house. The thought of white rice to eat must have motivated him. It seemed likely the girl's condition had taken a sudden turn for the worse because of the cakes she had been fed. The older girl said she hadn't eaten any herself, but she had saved them all for her sister. If Mom was pregnant, maybe she had found herself snacking on some too. Maomao looked on the shelf. Because she ran an apothecary shop in the pleasure district, she kept a supply of various abortifacients on hand. Many of these would be deadly if used in the wrong dosage. One of them showed symptoms very similar to this. The cause was a toxin present in spoiled grain, and even small amounts could lead to poisoning. This toxin limited blood circulation to the arms and legs, and could quickly cause tissue to die. The body would become paralyzed, and people sometimes experienced hallucinations. The treatment was straightforward: stop eating the poisoned grain. That and some exercise would help her body recover. Unfortunately for this girl, she probably would have wasted away if she'd stayed in her house before getting better. So Maomao had transferred her. I wonder if I really needed to do that, she thought. She didn't really believe her father would ever pay her, and if he did, she suspected the money would come from her older sister's begging. Even as she thought about how badly she'd messed up, she began gathering some clean rags. A few days later they had a visitor. It wasn't the middle-aged man this time, it was his daughter. She had fresh bruises, and Maomao doubted she had gotten them from falling down. The girl's little sister had recovered to the point where she could walk, although not very steadily. Malnutrition was a far bigger concern for her than the toxin had been. Her fingers still did not move very well, but that would probably heal in time. Maomao was relieved to have at last gotten her into the bath the day before. At the moment, the girl was out for a walk with Chu-yu, who had started to act like a big brother to her. "Did you bring my money?" Maomao asked the grubby young girl, her gaze hard. "Where is my little sister? See for yourself." Chu-yu could be seen outside the crude window, helping the child as she stumbled along. Her hair was washed and tied up, and she was starting to look like a little girl again. When she spotted her sister, the older girl almost ran over to her, but Maomao caught her hand. "My money, money, your money." She did not have it. She didn't, of course. Maomao had known the moment the old man failed to come himself. That was why she had him sign the slip she held. She showed the wooden slip to the girl. "You don't have it. That is fine. You can just sell her." She moved her thumb toward the toddling child. "It is probably not too late if we start training her now." The older girl was silent for a moment, then her eyes slowly met Maomao's. Maomao had been sure she would break down crying. Those dim, nearly dead eyes had a spark in them again. "I would bring more than a mute little girl," the older sister said, smacking herself demonstratively on the chest. Maomao noted her chest was even less impressive than her own abysmal example. Maomao looked at the girl. "You are saying you will take your sister's place. Do you know what you are volunteering for?" She leaned against the wall and scratched her shin with her toes. "I know full well. But it is either that or keep begging for the rest of my life. I am sure he will have me turning tricks before long anyway. My father takes away whatever little money I earn every day, so what is the difference?" She stamped her feet on the floor. It was better to just go ahead and be a prostitute. Sometimes, young women came knocking on Maomao's door. These young women mistakenly believed that the courtesans of the verdigris house enjoyed a far better life than those on the lowest level of society. They knew Maomao was connected to the place, so they wanted her to speak well of them. This girl seemed to have come with a similar idea. Maomao looked her up and down, then sighed. "Do you think you are worth that much? In your state, a farm girl fresh from the fields would fetch more than you. But my little sister is in the same condition, and she can't even talk." She is younger than you are, which means she will learn discipline quicker. Besides, you would be surprised how many men out there prefer the silent types. She was being deliberately cruel, but the young woman's eyes remained fixed on her. The girl never looked away. The light in her eyes grew stronger. I have to escape. Otherwise, I will spend the rest of my life as the mud under his feet. I will take anything at all to avoid that. Maomao put her little finger in her ear and began scratching diligently. It was a perfectly common story. When you were trapped in the mud, the harder you struggled to get free, the deeper you got sucked in. But maybe fighting was still better than not doing anything at all, just waiting to sink to your doom. Maomao liked the ones who tried to take matters into their own hands, even if it was futile. She preferred that to waiting and hoping someone would miraculously show up to pull them out. Even so, she had no special reason to help this girl, but also no special reason to stop her. The lady who runs that brothel is the most miserly old hag in the entire capital, Maomao said. If she doesn't think you will make her money, she won't give you the time of day. And even if she does purchase you, she will lowball you as hard as she can. The young woman still didn't flinch. If you come to her with nothing to offer but your own haggard body, she will probably slap a collar on you so you don't run away. And if you manage to escape anyway, or at least try to, well, get ready to pay for it with a rib or two. Is that all? That would be nothing next to having my own father break my arm. I am through living like a rat in a hole. So what do we do with your little sister? I am sure the old lady will take her in once she sees that I will work hard enough to cover both of us. The Verdigris house was a practical place. If the girl could earn that much money, the madam would likely indulge her. The madam said if she cannot make any use of you, neither of you will be any better than rats. Still looking less than pleased, Maomao went over to a chest of clothes and began to search through it. She pulled out an outfit almost at random. She had gotten it at the used clothes shop. It was almost ostentatious, but she tossed it to the filthy young girl. Use the well to wash up. Wash everything, including your hair. It will be cold. Too bad. If you have even one flea on you when you show up, she will chase you away with a broom before you get in the door. The girl clutched the clothing and went to the well. What would happen to her after this was none of Maomao's concern. She had chosen this path for herself. If she was going to regret it, then she could stay in the mud until she sank out of sight. Chapter 6 is titled The Last Volume. Gaeshun's son Basin came knocking on the door of the apothecary shop with several volumes of the encyclopedia. Maomao offered the young man, who looked every bit as put out as usual, the battered cushion. She poured some tea for him. Basin said, Master Jinchi is busy. This evidently meant he did not have the spare time to be coming here. The reason he was still using Jinchi's eunuch name was partly as an alias, but chiefly because Basin simply could not speak his true name. Nobles' names were not to be spoken lightly when commoners were near. The courtesans of the Verdigris house were all excited to see Maomao entertaining someone other than the usual handsome man and his attendant. The madam in particular was trying to appear calm, but Maomao could tell she was calculating everything in her head. Unlike when she was with Jinchi, the shop door stayed open while Basin was present. Their dealings were completely visible to everyone. It might have been a considerate act from Basin, a way of showing that nothing inappropriate was happening between them. I have brought what you asked for, Basin said. He then unwrapped a package covered in cloth, revealing several thick books. Maomao recognized one of them quite well. An encyclopedia of bugs was part of a set that included books about birds, fish, and plants as well. Maomao's interests were primarily herbal in nature. She had devoured the volume on plant life, but she had merely skimmed this one about bugs. She thought, I hope it is in here. Sazan had said her predecessor was researching locusts. It must be here, but she didn't see it. No matter how many times she looked, she couldn't find anything about them. Eventually, Basin started flipping the pages, searching for the elusive entry. It's not in here, he finally asked. It would seem not. You said it would be, so what if she had? What wasn't there simply wasn't there. It was confusing at best. Had Sazan tricked them? Not likely. What would he gain from it? Did anyone handle this book while it was in storage? Maomao asked, though she knew it would cast suspicion on the soldier who had obtained it. Who would be interested in something like this? People like what they like. Nonetheless, the possibility seemed remote. If someone was going to loot the place, there were more obviously valuable things to steal. Maomao groaned dispiritedly, but then she spotted someone coming toward the shop. This person moved with all the grace of a willow tree in a gentle breeze, and was profoundly well endowed. It was her older sister Perrin. Maomao watched her with a scowl forming on her face. The madam was trailing behind Perrin, not making any effort to stop her. She had already sized up Basin, it seemed. Perrin was a very pleasant courtesan. She was the oldest one working at the Verdigris house, but her beauty was undiminished. She still caught the eye of many a man. Lihaku the big dog was a prime example. She was also reputed to be the greatest dancer in the capital. She was a fine older sister, always kind to the younger courtesans and the apprentices. However, she wasn't without her faults. Perrin sidled up and stood behind Basin. Then she ran one beautiful, shapely finger along his cheek. Basin just about jumped out of his skin, although he somehow managed to remain seated while doing it.